Welcome to the Hometown Gym Podcast, the place where we teach parents and those new to fitness the best practices of physical health so that you can have the ability to run around and keep up with your kids and grandkids, and so that you can smile when you look at yourself in the mirror, and most importantly, that you live a pain-free, happy, and long life. It was the summer of 2019, and at the time I was training multiple sessions during the day for the upcoming competitive CrossFit season. One morning, my fellow trainer and me, a good friend of mine, Maddie Niles, were discussing techniques related to the bar muscle up. And as we got deeper into our conversation, I thought it would be a good idea to try one of the techniques that we were discussing ice cold, meaning I was going to do a high-level gymnastics skill without warming up at all. And for the viewers out there and the listeners on this, I probably don't have to tell you that that's a really terrible idea. And if you add in the fact that I had the tightest shoulders, pecs, and lats imaginable at the time for a 28-year-old man, we pretty much had a recipe for complete disaster. I did one muscle up, no problem. But as I swung downward to string two muscle ups together, I felt something pull in my left shoulder. Not good. And I knew I did something bad right away. Thankfully, the injury wasn't crazy. It didn't hurt a lot, and it didn't prevent me from doing a lot of the movements within my training. It did, however, prevent me from doing any sort of vertical pulling bodyweight movement for a long time. And as I was mere weeks away from the inaugural workout of the competitive CrossFit season, I thought my season was over. Luckily, due to a great friend, a couple rounds of therapy, and thoughtful rehab that was prescribed to me, I was not only able to compete in 2019, but I had the best CrossFit season ever, and probably will ever have at this point. And this morning, the man who helped me heal my shoulder along the way is with me this morning, and we get to hear his story, some of his best practices in his life. Mr. Robert Brown, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. What a story. I think this is the first time I heard that story to this degree, man. I didn't get all the details before.
Yeah. So when I was writing that intro, I was actually going to start about talking about canvassing and how we met, and your sales process, which was still so good, and I still admire so much. And then I remembered the shoulder injury, and I was like, that's going to be way more applicable to what my message is, to what your business's message is. So I'm going to talk about that. And dude, bottom of my heart, you absolutely just saved my whole season that year. And really, because I saw a chiropractor, I had thought about going to the doctor at that point, still didn't, because I wanted there to be some hope that I could compete that year. And we'll talk maybe more about that injury today or in another show, but it was you who was able to really pull me through and heal that injury. It was really a frustrating, it was a couple of months, man, before it finally got healed.
Well, whatever part I played, I am very, very grateful and glad that I was able to help you rehab that shoulder and get back to doing what you love.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man, for sure. So Robert, we like to start the show just talking about what we're working on in regards to our physical health. Now, you're a strapping, and I still can't believe it, 60-year-old man. That's the last time I'll share your age on here, but I think it's applicable here because no one would ever guess that, number one. And I just love the fact that regardless of your age, how active you are. And this is a guy who works out, a guy who's on the jiu-jitsu mats with all realms of different people, up to date on his nutrition, just a really active guy. What are you working on these days, man, on the physical side of health?
Well, I mean, as you said, and thank you again for the comment on the age and everything. This is a quick story on that. I'll answer your question.
Yeah, please,
It's so funny
please.
that you mentioned that. Is that yesterday, even though I don't have much hair, I was in the barbershop yesterday getting this trimmed up, my beard trimmed up.
Right.
And my barber, who I've been seeing him for a couple of years, he says, great guy. He calls me Mr. Brown, no matter how many times I tell him to call me Robert. He goes, Mr. Brown, how old are you? I said, I'm 60. He goes, what? He goes, I would have never, ever guessed.
No one would, man. No one would.
Because you look like you're in your mid-40s. He asked me basically the same question that you asked. Well,
Yeah.
how do you do it? Well, partly one, got really, really good genes. As I tell people, if you saw my mom, who is 86 now, She looks like she's in her 60s. So
That's
that's
awesome.
one part of it. But the other part of it, and the part that really drives me in what I do here as a profession, is I got to stay in shape, man. I've got 6 little grandkids. My goal has always been to be able to run with them no matter what they do, and I can. In some cases, a couple of my grandkids, I can outrun them. So I just try to stay active. Jiu-jitsu is a big part of what keeps me healthy. And I do that 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week. Most of the guys and girls in there are in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah,
And here it is me. I think right now, where I go, I might be the oldest person in there.
that's awesome, man.
So I
Absolutely
mean,
awesome.
it keeps me young training with those younger people because I'm a competitive guy. I don't want them to be able to get an advantage on me, so I train hard. And, there's days I come home, Brandon. I'm telling you, I'm sore. I walk in the door. My wife will be like, "How was jujitsu?" I'm like, "I feel beat up, and I truly do beat up, but I recover." Like you said, you mentioned nutrition part. I do that. That helps to recover, get good sleep, and right back at it the next day.
I love it, man. Well, Robert, where are you from? Where'd you grow up, man?
Native Washingtonian. So I've been to all 3 areas of what's considered Washingtonia. I was born in DC.
Yeah.
I grew up in Maryland, and I've been in Virginia for probably the last 20 years. So I've covered all 3.
Where did you spend most of your childhood?
Maryland. So
Mm.
I grew up not too far from University of Maryland, and I thought for a long time I was going to end up going to that university, but fate took me a different direction. But yeah, I grew up in Maryland, man. I went to school there from 3rd grade all the way until I went to college. So yeah,
Dang, what was it like growing up on the Maryland side?
it was very different back then. Where I grew up, very nice middle class neighborhood. Knew probably seems like the vast majority of my neighbors, definitely on both sides, and a couple of houses down, where that just almost is non-existent in these days.
Mm.
The adjacent street, I knew a lot of the neighbors by name. So it was a great place to grow up. It was a family environment. Grew up in a 2-parent household, which is, that's fantastic. It's sad you have to say that, but in these days, I grew up in a very loving
Yeah,
two
I get
parent
you.
household.
Mm.
So it was great to grow up in that area.
What were you like in school? Good student? Did you care? Talk to me about that.
That's a great question. So I will be honest with you. I was not the best student. Not that I
Yeah.
wasn't smart or anything like that. I just did not apply myself. But a funny thing happened when I was in the 3rd grade. There was a officer friendly program, it was called back then. One of
Hmm.
his friends was a canine police officer. They came to my school, and I just was blown away by seeing a canine police officer. And from that moment in 3rd grade, I said I wanted to be a police officer, but I didn't apply myself until I got to college. I was an average student at best. The moment I got to college, that average student turned into an A student because I realized, at least I felt, if I didn't get good grades, the police department wouldn't accept me. So I just really buckled down and applied myself, and I've been an A student all through college. When I went to ultimately massage school and all the schools that I've been to, A student there. So that just kind of changed my life.
You wouldn't believe how many times I hear that. This is the 4th interview that I've done, and then 3 of them, and I'll throw myself in the ring too. I was the exact same way in school, right? I was much more interested in just, going out, hanging out with my friends, playing sports outside than I ever was just kind of doing homework. But for whatever reason, when I got to college too, Robert, it was I don't know what switch just kind of went off where I was like, hey, I need to turn it up here so that I can, I don't know, provide for my family, get a good job, whatever that was. It wasn't quite as astute as being a 3rd grader being like, yeah, I'm going to go and be a police officer one day. I've never heard that story. That's absolutely remarkable. What activities did you enjoy as a kid? Were you a sports person? What'd you like to do?
My dad I did not know was a very, very intelligent man. So the reason we ended up in Maryland
Yeah.
is because the neighborhood that we were living in DC was starting to slide.
Mm,
So he moved, smart man. He moved us to DC, Maryland. I'm sorry, and him raising two young boys. He was smart enough to realize I have to keep my sons active. So what he did is year round made sure we were playing some sport. It was baseball, basketball, football. It just was an endless loop. When baseball ended, I think this was the next sport after that season. I think it was football started. So it was just endless. I had maybe a week or two between each sport from the ending of one and the beginning of the other. So I didn't have time to get in trouble. I was always at practice and playing games.
that's a good way to do that, and I emulate that, Robert. I was pretty much the same way. So was my father, right? He had us doing stuff pretty much year round. Did you prefer one sport over the other? Did you like everything?
That leads right into that question about being a student. So my favorite sport to play was probably football, but my best sport as an athlete was baseball. Now, the way that kind of lines up with me academically is my 11th grade year, I got all F's. Not all F's, I got three F's in that final semester, and I had to go to summer school in order to graduate to the 12th grade.
Yeah.
So my dad, wisdom, he says, "Oh, okay, well, since you want to play in school, when football season starts, you won't be playing." It broke me because I was pretty good in football and I had a promising college career,
Yeah.
but that killed it. And in addition to the experience I had in third grade, but when he told me I couldn't play football, that's when I started really turning things around academically, and said I will never let academics be a reason to hold me back again.
Well, good for you in that regard. By the way, I also had a semester where I had it was at least two Fs, and I also had to go to summer school. And what's funny about that, Robert, is I mean, the expectation was never that I had to get A's. My dad was just like, "Hey, put your best effort forward. If that's a B, that's completely fine. If that's a C plus, that's completely fine." And I just, yeah, just didn't apply myself. You hit the nail on the head. I had to bike to summer school.
Mm.
Um, I had to bike home every single day, which was 10 miles back to my house
God.
where it was. So now I think about that. And I'm like, it's, maybe that's a 40, 50-minute bike ride. But for a 16-year-old kid who, it was like a mountain bike too. I wasn't riding a road bike.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did that make a difference. And that wasn't something that I wanted to do going forward. All right, so we did a bunch of sports growing up through high school. You thought you wanted to become a police officer at one time. You're like, hey, I'm going to go to this university in College Park at Maryland. What happened after high school?
So I mean, everything kind of lined up for me. So right after high school, I got the opportunity to be a cadet for the police department. So I did that for maybe 2 years, and right from that, right into the police academy. And it's like the stars aligned perfectly. So I was
What's
able to
what's the difference between a cadet and somebody who's in the academy?
basically a cadet. You're sort of the first persons that they look at when they want to bring on an officer. You're around other officers all the time. You do a lot of internal stuff within the department. You do a lot of ride-alongs just to kind of see. So you utilize for a lot of different things, which gave me great exposure and meeting a lot of officers to get an idea of what it would be like. So by the time I went to the police academy and got out the area that I was assigned to, I already knew a lot of the officers because I was around them all the time.
Yeah.
So it was great for me. It wasn't that honeymoon period where I had to get to know them because a lot of them already knew and they knew me, which is more importantly.
So what was it like actually becoming a police officer? What did you end up in the canine unit? What were some of the positions that you held there?
I did end up in the canine unit and also end up with the old officer friendly unit, but it was fun. I will say the police department in many ways has molded me to the regard is I can connect with anyone, no matter old, young, black, white, yellow, pink. I can connect with anyone, and I think the police department,
Awesome.
just seeing all of the thousands and thousands of people that I interacted with, just helped. So that part of it I liked. The part, and I talk about this sometimes in some of the sessions with people that I treat. The part that I'm not, that I had to really train myself to change, is that when you're a police officer, you have to develop like a harder exterior to the degree, because you see a lot of things, and if you allow it to affect you emotionally, it could interfere with your ability to do the job effectively. So sometimes that bit of humanity you have to turn off just to be able to cope with the job. And when I
Yeah.
left the job, I took that with me for many, many years. And that showed up with people that I loved. And I realized I can't do this. Is people that I love. I have to be connected emotionally to them. So it took a while to rewire me. So that me as a police officer is no longer the me now.
Yeah, funny enough, I was interviewing a former police officer last night as well, and he was talking about at least the things that you guys have to go through. So, from the bottom of my heart, I can't thank you enough for the time that you served. To all the veterans out there, whether you're a police officer in the military, anything that you're doing for public service is absolutely incredible there, man. What were, I don't know, a couple of the things that molded you the best from your time in the force?
Wow, wow, man, that's a tough question. That molded me the best. I think the amount of different people that you come in contact with. Actually, I do know the story. So if you know anything about me personally, when it comes to children, from the time I was a young child myself, I am a sucker for children. This one particular case, this is back when I was the officer friendly program.
Yeah.
This one particular case, I got a call of this family that I was working with. It was a mom, a little boy, and stepdad.
Hmm.
The little boy was 4, I believe, at the time. And they said he was in the hospital. And I'm like, why is he in the hospital? Well, stepdad got very upset because the little boy had an accident on himself. So to
Yeah.
teach him a lesson, he put him in a scalding hot tub. And that broke me down, because at that time, he was the same age as my son.
Yeah. Jeez, dude. Hmm.
Yeah. And that for whatever reason, that story has stuck with me in my entire life. So seeing kids mistreated, yeah, that's a very sensitive spot for me. I have, like I said, I have 6 grandchildren, and if it was up to me, man, I'd be around all 6 every day as much as possible. I mean, I'm I'm a sold out granddad.
Oh, dude, I can believe that 100%. And I echo that sentiment, at least with my little boy here today. And then I know I told you we have a second that's going to be on the way. Are the grandkids local, or are they kind of spread out?
They're all local except for one.
Yeah,
One lives in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I got you, man. And even that's not too bad, right? That's like a drive away for you guys. What a blessing to have all that. Well, last question on the time from being a police officer, man. What was maybe one or two of just your fondest memories of your time there in the force?
I really enjoyed being a canine officer. I mean, I love that because
Stuck with you all that time. That's
it
awesome.
stuck with me, man. It's just the amount of different things that you do as an officer, from assisting the tactical team to doing drug searches for contraband, for searching for bad guys in the woods. That was just fun. I mean,
Yeah,
I think I would have done that part of the police, being a police officer, for free, because it was just fun. Because every day
that's
was different, and you got this, we call used to call them furry alligators, that he was just as mean and sweet as possible.
yeah.
It was like he could just turn that switch off just like that, and I love that about him.
It's absolutely amazing that they can train an animal to be able to do that, right? I can hardly get my dog to sit down. My son's sitting down for dinner, so it's amazing what you can do with different things along that way. And thanks for sharing that part of your life there, Robert. That's awesome. So, how the heck did you end up in Loudoun County, Virginia?
So, wow, I was previously married,
Hmm.
and we were living in Owings Mills,
Yeah.
Baltimore
Okay. Yep.
County, and we my wife then took a job down here in Herndon, so it's like we're not going to make that commute from Baltimore.
That's a hike. That's a
That's a
hike.
hike. So she took a job down here, and at the time, I had just started another business, which allowed me to basically work this business on a computer. So I didn't have to be at a particular location. As long as I had a computer, I could work. So she said, would you be okay moving to Virginia? I'm like, sure, why not? So we moved to Ashburn, and I'm remarried, but still living in Ashburn.
Yeah.
I've been here. Wow, we moved here 2008. Been here ever
Oh
since.
yeah. Okay. So you guys have been here a long time now. When does massage therapy work into this equation? Was that right after you were a police officer? Is that when you came over to Virginia? When did that happen?
The question I probably get asked the most when I'm treating people is, "How did you end up doing this?" So here's
Yeah,
just
yeah. It's a curious
yeah.
transition, man.
So here's the story. So one of the functions that I had when I was on the police department is every year on our department, the officers had to pass a fitness test. My job, this is how fitness started for me. My job was for the officers who weren't able to pass the fitness test. I would work with them for a period of time until they could pass the fitness test. So that was kind of like my introduction into personal training. So ultimately, when I left the other business that I had, I'm thinking, well, okay, what am I going to do? I'm not a police officer anymore. I was doing real estate. That market crashed in 2008.
Oh
What am I going to
yeah,
do?
yeah,
So the only skill that I had at that time was personal training. So I got a job at a gym, started personal training, and some of the people, this is where you come into play.
yeah.
Some of the people that I would train were either sore from a workout or they got injured doing something else. So if
Hmm.
they're injured and they can't work out, and if they sore that they can't work out, I don't make any money. So I got a bright idea. What if I go to massage school? What if I go to physical therapy school and get certified and licensed in both of those? Then, regardless if they were sore from a workout or if they got injured from doing something else, I can still help them. And that's how Sports Massage Pros came to be. Just from that, it was just an idea and a thought. I'm like, nobody else that I could find at the time was doing it. I was like, I can't see it not working. Let's just give it. Let's just go for it and see what happens. And once I did that, the rest is history. I started this 2011.
Hey, listeners, first, thanks so much for listening to the show. A quick reminder here, if you're new to the gym or you're not sure what to do or how to start, navigate over to hometownGym.net. This is our website where we have fitness programs for beginners where you can start with a sample class at no cost to you with support 7 days per week. In addition to that, we have even more free content through the website over there. Again, that's hometownGym.net. Thanks so much. And we're back to our show. And here we are today. That's yeah, I can't think of very many personal trainers that I've ever met in my life that would have had that. So what was it like the balancing? So were you doing personal training full time and then going to school at night? Like what was that
Oh
like?
man, yeah. So massage school was 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Started at 5. It went from 5 o'clock p.m. to 10:30 p.m.
Oh,
Monday through
dang.
Thursday. So I started training clients. My earliest client, I had one at 4 o'clock, but that was just too early for me because back then our gym was open from 4 a.m. to midnight. But I usually started at 5 a.m. I would train 9 or 10 clients every day till about noon, 1 o'clock, I would go take a quick nap. Then I would go to massage school, and it was tough. It was tough, but again, I managed to get all A's, man. So if you put your mind to it, you can still do it.
Yeah, I was just about to reiterate that. The type of personal training that you were doing, Robert, what type of workouts were you kind of implementing with your clients? What were you guys doing?
It was more just fitness stuff.
Yeah,
It wasn't anything special. I didn't have back then the amount of athletes that I work with now.
yeah,
It was just your regular mom and pop stuff. They want to get back in shape or they want to stay healthy. But it wasn't anything specific. It was just I had a good group of people who liked my style, liked my energy. They were tough workouts, but they were tough differently. So
yeah,
I think one of the things I was really good at is to see people for where they are fitness wise and tailor the workout just hard enough on their level that they can do, but also it motivates them to come back the next day.
yeah. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect, man. All right, so we completed massage school while doing personal training, had your own business. Eventually, you work your way into the Washington Capitals organization. How does that happen?
That is just like a twist of fate, just like
Yeah.
it was when I ended up on the police department as a cadet. So here's how this went down. So I was a massage therapist for 4 years, 5 years. And this is how the physical therapy part actually started. I started taking every pain management class I could find, you know,
Mm-hmm.
pain management for treating the shoulders, treating the knees, treating this, treating that. And this, where I went to school, they invited me in to talk to the class, people that were in class to become massage therapists because they knew I was doing a lot of sports massage stuff in my practice. And they said, would you come and share your experience? And I'm like, absolutely. Well, I met a lady in there who kind of was interested in doing this type of work as well.
Mm-hmm.
So after I did my presentation there, I passed all business cards. She called me up. We became friends, and we ended up working at a place together. And then she told me one day, she goes, I don't know if you know it or not. The Washington Capitals are looking for a massage therapist, and the qualifications that they're asking for, I know you have these things. She's like, maybe you should apply and see what happens. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. Why
Yeah.
not? Didn't know anything about hockey and knew even less about the Capitals outside of Alexander Ovechkin. That's all I knew about the Capitals.
Fair enough.
So I sent my resume in. I'll tell you, Brandon, it was about maybe 3 days later. My phone rings. It's the head trainer. He introduces himself and he says, I think you may be who we are looking for. I'm like, oh, wow. We'd like you to come out for an interview. This is true story. He says, we'd like to interview you. If you like, I can come out to Ashburn
Wow.
to interview you. I'm like, no, heck no. I'll come to the facility in Arlington. So I went there. This was all inside of a week. So I went there for my
Dang.
interview. My interview really wasn't an interview. My interview lasted 4 hours. And all we did for 3.5 hours was just talk like we're doing.
Yeah.
Talk to
That's all.
him.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
Yeah, talk to him, talk to the assistant trainer. And then there was a player. I don't even remember who the player was. There was a player that was in there, and he says, okay, well, we like you. We need to see what you can do. So this is what he has going on. Go do your thing. So I spent about 15, 20 minutes with that player and got up from the table and they asked the player, how is he? He says, we need to keep him.
Dang.
So he told me
What an
after the,
endorsement.
oh my gosh. He told me after the interview, he says, I'm be honest with you. We have one more person to interview. This was a Monday.
Yeah.
Yes, I am going to call you back one way or the other on Thursday. And I'm like, great. So he calls me up, and my wife is right next to me, and she knows it's them on the phone. And she's like, what are he saying? What are he saying?
Yeah.
And all the head trainer did was just talk. He never said you got the job, you didn't get the job. it's like 15 minutes. He hasn't said a word. He's just talking
Holy
to me.
cow.
And I'm like, I don't know what kind of emotions to have because I don't know if I need to be sad because I didn't get the job, if I need to be excited because I did get it. And my wife was like, "What did he say? What did he say?" Finally, he says, "So do you still want to come work with us?" I said,
That must have felt like an
"Abs."
eternity.
Oh
15
God,
minutes.
I was dying. I
Yeah.
said, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
He says, "Well, tell you what. Talk to your wife. You don't have to make a decision right now. Give us a call back next 24, 48 hours. Give us your answer." So
Yeah.
fair enough, fair enough. So I called him back the next day, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I can only imagine. So you're starting to go into Arlington with those guys. I mean, what was it like to get to go and work with the Washington Capitals?
It was a fantastic experience. I mean, I will say those guys really took care of me. And what I mean by that, they were they made me a part of the team. I mean, they made me feel and like I fit right in. Although they challenged me for a little bit, which is part of their kind of like initiation process. No hazing or anything like that, but you're like, hey,
Sure.
we need to make sure that you're here for us, which I appreciated it. So, you know, you had to earn your stripes, but it wasn't anything crazy. And once I was able to do that, and they saw that, hey, I was really here for you, and I'm available whenever you need me. I mean, they took care of me. They when we would travel, they would not let me spend a dime like for food.
Dang.
So if I was at a restaurant or going to a restaurant and they were there, they would walk up to the waitress or waiter and say, "Hey, give me his check." And it was unbelievable. So we were in, I can't remember the city. Gosh, I've been all over the country in Canada, but we were in one city, and I went to eat at this restaurant. I was by myself, and there was three other players in there,
Yeah.
and I went to sit down by myself. And my nickname on the team, I don't know how I got it, was Downtown, like in downtown Bobby Brown. They used to call me Downtown. It was like downtown. Are you with somebody else? I'm like, no. He says, well, come on, join us. I'm like, no, it's cool. He's like, no, come and join us. So the check comes. So I'm thinking to show my appreciation, I'm going to reciprocate and pay the bill.
Yeah.
So the bill comes, and I reach for the check, and one of the players grabs my hand. It's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to take care of the check. You know, you guys take care of me. I'm going to take care of you. They were like, no, that's not how it works. You
Yeah.
take care of you.
That's awesome,
It
man.
doesn't work
What a
the other
team
way around.
environment.
Yeah, so it was great. I loved it.
That's awesome. You know, I don't know anything about the culture inside an actual sports organization, so it's kind of cool to get your perspective here and actually see what it's like to be in the locker room with those guys. And it's so cool to understand that they were. I mean, they're really a team, and that extends beyond just the players, just the coaches, but it's the operating people and the people that are behind the scenes, helping them get as fit and as healthy as possible. I wouldn't have guessed that. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, I had a very great experience with the Capitals. It's a great organization. I think from top to bottom, the coach Barry Trotz at the time had a lot to do with the team, with the culture. It's so funny. My wife and I were talking about that last night, and hockey came up. She was like, "Would you ever go back to the Capitals?" I'm like, I enjoyed my time with the Capitals. I said I think my time in hockey is over unless I said so. Barry Trotz, he is the general manager in Nashville Predators. So he's no longer coaching, but he's the general manager. So he calls the
Yeah,
shot. I said if he called me up and said, "Hey, we need a therapist," I would strongly consider for him. I mean that he had that much of an impact on me. Just a very fair, just down to earth, straight guy. I mean, he was. I've never in my life seen anybody as fair as he was from Ovechkin to the person who is youngest as far as staff on the team, which would have been me. Just across the board fair. I would work for him probably in a minute.
All right. Well, Barry, if you're listening out there, Mr. Robert Brown, he'll come down to Nashville at any time. Ironically enough, my really good friend ran into him in Arlington, some random bar, and my buddy's a huge hockey guy, absolutely adores it. So he works up some courage to go over there and just kind of say hi. And Barry talked to him for like 30 minutes, had a beer with him,
Yep.
did all that, and I was just like,
Yep.
for
That's
somebody as
Barry.
busy as he is, and I'm sure he is, who could have a million other things to do. I think it's really awesome that somebody of his stature and a public figure like that to some extent would just spend a little bit of time with a fan. It's one of the best memories that he has. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, Barry is one of a kind. I mean, I
Yeah.
that's an awesome guy. He when you talk about name some people in your life that's impacted you, Barry comes to the top of my list.
Yeah.
That's how much that man impacted me in my 2.5 years with the team.
Well, that's going to put a soft spot in my heart for the Nashville Predators as this hockey season continues to roll over here. What was it like working with professional athletes? And maybe let's just do a comparison to kind of the everyday adult. You can use me as an example there, Robert.
I did an Instagram post a couple of weeks ago just on that very topic.
I'll have to go find that after that
Yeah,
and link that here. Continue.
the biggest difference is this. So when a athlete, first of all, an athlete is going to naturally take care of their body for the most part. You don't have to, you know, put any pressure on them because this is their livelihood. So they're going to take care of their body, nutrition wise, exercise, and what have you. But here's where it changes. What a professional athlete does, they do a heck of a lot on warm up before, whether it's before practice or it's before a game. They do a lot of warm up. When I was with the Capitals, those guys, their warm up would be 20 minutes or so, just
Yeah.
warming up, foam rolling, stretching. This is before practice. And most people don't warm up, and even less people after their event, they don't do a cool down. Religiously, these guys would do a cool down. So they took care of their bodies. Now, when they got injured, and of course they do from time to time, if it's the team doctor or if it's me says, hey, you need to do this to get better, they follow the plan. And this is the distinction that I made in an Instagram post that I made is one of the biggest thing that I see. If you give them a plan to follow, they follow it. They don't do it once or twice and say, okay, everything is better. And I say this all the time when I'm treating people now, is I'll say something like, I'm going to treat you today and I'm going to treat you 2 days later. You're going to start to feel better right away. I said, but don't be fooled. Even if that pain that you came in for is gone after the second time I treat you, you are not 100%. Do not go back to what you were doing before just yet. You need a few more treatments so we can get you stronger. So when you do go back, you don't re-injure yourself. But some people listen, some people don't. The ones that don't, they end up back here.
I have more than once fell into that camp. And as we opened up the show, right, we were talking about that. So as we have listeners in both camps of ours here, Robert, whether you're listening, Robert's audience, our audience, and just wondering more about fitness and everything, I can't tell you enough how important warm-ups, cool downs are, and it can seem inconvenient at the time, but you do need to take the time to get your body a little bit loose, bring your body temperature up, get the joints ready to move, and then on the other side, bring your body back down to equilibrium and continue to stretch after the workout. And if my story isn't enough of an example of what not to do where you're doing high level gymnastics without warming up, very silly. And I remember you giving me that answer, back in our first conversation years ago about professional athletes just sticking to their therapy to a T. Absolutely awesome, man. When you were working for the Caps, were you doing that kind of as a contractor? Were you still sports massage pros at the time, or were you a direct employee for Washington? And then how did you transition back to doing your own thing?
Before I went to work for the Caps, I was doing a combination of mobile massage, and then I put in a few hours at that time I was at a chiropractor's office.
Yeah.
And then I got the call to go with the Capitals. So then obviously I shut everything down. I mean, I didn't have the time to go do anything else but the Caps, because that's a full-time employee. They made me an employee.
I'm sure it was full time and then some
Full-time.
with all the traveling and everything that you had to do. I'm sure it was a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, I traveled with the team. I was at telling people I was at every practice and every game every day, no matter the city. And and that was fun. And just to circle back, when you talk about Barry Trotz, because it kind of connects with what we're talking about now. After my first season with him, he called me up one day, which was odd, at least I thought. And he says, this is after the season was over. He says, I want to meet you this week. Are you available? And I gave him a day. I says, where do you want to meet? He gives me his restaurant in Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, wow, he's gonna fire me, and he's gonna do it over lunch. You know, so I feel like I'm about to get whacked like the mafia.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So we meet for lunch, and he's asking me how my first year was, and give me the highs, give me the lows, and all that good stuff. And he was just getting some insight of what he could do as a coach to get this, to make my experience better for the next year. Again,
Dude.
that's why I hold him in such high esteem. But yeah, that was so. Yeah, I was full time with the Capitals. And then when I left, here's the sad part about when I left. So when I left the Capitals, is when Barry Trotz went to. They wanted a new contract. They didn't renew his contract. This is before they won the Stanley Cup. So actually, no, he don't take that back. He's still there. So we had a new trainer come in, because the trainer that hired me, he retired. So when the new trainer came in, he wanted his own staff.
Yeah.
Meant Robert's out.
Yeah.
Well, that following year, what happened? They won the Stanley Cup. You're talking about being really upset, because all that hard work that I put in those couple of years, and then
You were part of that, bro. Yeah. Dang.
That was painful, man.
Has to be.
Has to be.
So how'd you go back? So Caps is over at that point, and then you just go back to doing your own thing at the chiropractic office. How'd you transition back to that?
Yeah. I was doing my own thing, but doing this type of work, traveling is very difficult. Going from place to place to place, carrying your table, your equipment.
It's how we met, man. Difficult. I remember you doing that. It's awesome.
That's how we met. So there was a physical therapy office that was looking for a therapist. I applied for it. Similar to the Caps, they got my resume. They called me right away. I went to meet the owner. She wanted to hire me right away. And, what they were paying wasn't what I was looking for. So I declined the offer, but she didn't give up. So she sweetened the offer and ended up taking that job. So I was there for maybe a year, and then light bulb goes off. I'm making this place a lot of money. I'm bringing in my own business.
Yeah.
But they're taking a large cut of it. Why am I doing that? So I decided that I'm going to branch out on my own. I left there, and I went to, this is how I ended up in Ashburn doing this, is there's a chiropractor. This was back when I was at Massage Envy. This is how stuff just comes back around.
Mm-hmm.
There was a chiropractor. I treated one of his sons for an injury. My early days of doing this. He was so impressed with that, he brought his other son, treated him, he got better. So we kind of kept in contact. He sent me a text one day, because he knew I was with the Caps. And well, actually, he knew I left the Caps, and he says, I'm opening up my own office in Ashburn. I have a room for you if you want it. Here's the address. It's under construction. Go take a look and let me know what you think. I went by this office, even under construction, and I was like, yeah, this is for me. So he says, you can run your own business. You rent out the space and you do your own thing. So I was like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. And steadily it started growing, little by little, more and more, to the point that I outgrew it. I needed my own staff, and I could no longer stay there because I was just doing a lot of volume. I was seeing 6, 7, 8 people 6 days a week. Because I was back then, I was working Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday, I was working from 8 to 1. I was just full every day. So that's when I decided it's time to go. Time to get your own spot to where I'm at now.
Hey guys, quick ask from us. Our mission at Hometown Gym is to increase the happiness and the quality of life for as many parents and people as possible. If you could take a moment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening or possibly watching, click the little up arrow. That's the share icon of your favorite episode of the podcast, and share it with someone you know. While we do greatly appreciate it, what's more important is that little share may change that person's life. Exercise and nutrition are the two main driving forces to improve so many aspects of life, physical health, obviously, but mental health as well. So again, if you could take a second and share this with someone that you know, that would be awesome. And who knows, it may be the best thing that ever happens to that individual. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the show. And here we are.
And here
That's
we
awesome,
are.
man. That's awesome. So one, I think it's cool that a chiropractor took his own children over to you, Robert, to have them treated, right? What's the difference between what a chiropractor does, what a PT does, and then what you do?
So chiropractors all about, or mostly about, joint manipulation. So their whole philosophy is we align the body, you can move better, you feel better. But the thing with chiropractic care, it resets things, but it doesn't necessarily in all cases um, fix things. So if you're injured, some people will start, if they're injured, they don't know where to go. Someone says, hey, we'll go, I have a great chiropractor, go see them. Chiropractor will do some adjustments. This is kind of stuff I hear all the time.
Yeah.
Chiropractor will do, and I believe, let me just say this, I believe wholeheartedly in chiropractic care. But the chiropractor would do some adjustments and they'll feel great and then they'll go back because it just resets it. That's which is actually the first part of therapy is the resetting. So they do a fantastic job in that, but it doesn't do the other parts that's necessary. Physical therapists, they do they're more they focus more on exercises. They do exercises to help get the body stronger for things that cause it to not fall apart, but they have dysfunction in the first place.
Yeah.
They don't do a lot of hands-on stuff. They do some, but they do a lot. Massage therapy, which is different than sports massage therapy. Massage therapy is all hands-on. It's very similar to the results in chiropractic care. You feel better, but just by itself alone doesn't always, depends on what you're treating people for. So I can't say that across the board, but by and large, it's not going to fix anything. What I do is a combination of all those with the exception of chiropractic care. My philosophy that I always tell people, because I have people that come in every single week, this is without exception. They'll say something like, I've went to see a chiropractor for this issue. I went to see a massage therapy for this issue. It got maybe a little bit better, but here I am. What's different about you? And this is what I tell them. This is what I believe that what you have done with a physical therapist as far as the exercises, fantastic. You absolutely need those exercises. What you have done with a massage therapist, also fantastic. You need that. Here's what's missing and here's why you didn't get better. I believe, just from my experience. What I do is the first several times I'm treating people, it's all hands on because I'm preparing the body for the exercises, corrective exercises that I'm later going to do. So and again, it started just as theory, but now I kind of like believe wholeheartedly that this works because I've seen so many results, positive results from doing it this way. So I do the hands-on stuff first to the point where I'm increasing range of motion, I'm increasing flexibility. They move better, they feel better. Now you're ready for those corrective exercises because I've prepared your body for it. And that way of doing it seems to be very, very effective for me.
I can personally attest to that. And I'm sitting here thinking, trying to go back to, when I finally kind of came and saw you. And it's funny because we were friends prior to that. And I kind of came later and you're like, bro, why did you wait this long to come see me? And gosh, I don't know. I thought it would just go away or whatever it's going to be. And I can't even
You know,
remember obviously I remember seeing you. I remember going through it was a couple different visits to therapy, but I can't even remember the stuff that we were doing back then. But it was because of that visit that it got better and I was able to start pulling and doing all that. So I can personally attest to Robert's story, his differences. I went through that exact experience as well. Do you work with a particular client there, Robert? Do you work with everybody? Tell us a little bit about that.
oh yeah, I definitely everybody. My youngest person that I'm seeing right now is 11.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little boy that he plays soccer. I mean, gosh, he is very, very good at 11. So
That's
he
awesome.
plays with a couple different teams, and one of it is an elite travel team. I see him once a week. The oldest person that I'm seeing currently is 78. So I
All
would say
walks of
by
life.
all walks of life, from athletes, as in the case of the little boy, to just your average person, in case of the lady is 78. Now, here's the funny thing about this lady. Actually, her and her husband both have been coming to see me every single week for like the last 3 years.
That's awesome, man.
That's not the awesome part. The awesome part is they live in Winchester.
Oh, wow.
So they make that
Dedication, man.
drive. And so with them, they say, Robert, the only reason why we come to see you every week, because we've gotten to the point that we know we feel better when you come. I don't always do hands-on stuff. I don't always do exercise stuff. I always do a combination. In fact, with them, they have this. They're going to Holland. I believe it's in March or April to look at the tulips. And what they said to me is that we're going to do a lot of walking, a lot of hiking. So we need you to get us ready for this trip in Holland. Oh, fantastic. So we're doing a lot of stuff to work on endurance, to strengthen their legs, to strengthen their core. Again, they're in their late 70s. So we're doing this every single week. And sometimes they're sore, but they keep coming right back. So I've got them on a plan for success for this trip that they're taking in March.
I love that. I mean, not only is it just you're making someone feel better, but just the increase in quality of life, the ability at that age also to go across the world to be able to see one of the most spectacular events in probably the entire world is incredible, man. That's really great. What's I'm gonna say maybe not best advice, but I don't know, a couple of tips to I don't know, prospective clients or people that are listening to the show. Most important stuff to either I'll just say prevent injury. Let's start there.
If I could, I'm going to give you a couple, but if you narrow me down to one thing, get off your ass. Get off your ass.
Direct. I love it. Okay. I love it.
You got to get up and move. If we live, especially in this country, and even more so after COVID, a very sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah.
I would say 70-ish%, maybe even more of the people that I treat have sedentary lifestyles. And the reason why they're here is the result of the accumulation of their sedentary lifestyle that's created other things.
Mm-hmm.
So get up, move. If I could just give one thing.
It's funny that you say that, because a lot of times, especially back in the days, we're running a CrossFit gym, you get so many folks, and to some extent, maybe rightfully so, but they would be afraid of getting injured. And it's pretty funny how much the lack of mobility will lead to injury. I would say, and I think you're saying it here too, more so than it's going to be if you're going to go in and exercise and do all that. Plus, you don't get the benefits of the cardiovascular exercise, the stress you're putting on your respiratory system. which is like the number one thing that you can do to basically increase your longevity. So I wasn't expecting that answer. That's absolutely incredible, man. And then as far as just, best advice for a client just to increase their quality of life and longevity, what are one or two things that come to mind to increase that for somebody, Robert?
I mean, one of the things is which your whole thing is about, man, is nutrition. When we got to eat better, it's okay to periodically have chips and the sweets and stuff like that, but that just cannot be or the alcohol cannot be something that you do on a regular daily, weekly basis. Everything is in moderation. I think one of the reasons why, outside of having good genes, people always don't believe my age is I take care of myself. And
Yeah,
I
man.
think because of what I do helps me take care of myself better, because some of the people that I treat, that some people that I treated are younger than me, they move like they're 20 years older. I'm glad they come to see me because I'm able. So when they tell me like in their 50s and it's like, yeah, I'm old, and I ask them, how old do you think I am?
I'm glad you're going this direction. This is going to be my last question that we were going to address. Keep going.
And when they think I'm in my 40s and I tell them that I'm 60, it kind of clicks in their head a little bit that I am, in some cases, 10 years older than them, but I'm doing all these different things as an encouragement to try to get them just to do something. We have converged so many people that came in here for treatment for an injury into doing ongoing, consistent exercise programs. I think that's probably one of my shining lights. Is I had somebody came in here injured, had a sedentary lifestyle. We got them feeling better. We started the exercises, and they just continued doing it. That's probably the thing that I'm most proud of. Being able to change someone's life where they're now doing things on their own.
I love that. Absolutely love it, man. It's awesome. I'm glad that you touched on that. And I think there's a mentality out there. I'm going to slow down. My knees are not going to be able to work properly. And there's some truth to that, right? Especially after the age of 40 for men, our testosterone is going to be starting to go down. You're going to lose maybe some strength application, depending on kind of where you're at in life. But that doesn't mean you're just going to lose complete, motor functionality of everything that you're doing. In your absolute living testament to that. In a specimen at 60, I mean, look at all the things that you're doing, and that is absolutely possible for anybody that's going to be out there. Just because you're 50 or you're 40 doesn't mean that you can't go out there and do stuff. And the whole reason that we do what we do, Robert, is because I want to give, parents, adults, grandparents the ability to do exactly what you're doing, which is the ability to run around with your kids, be able to be active, and just live a happy, healthy life until you're going to be into your 90s. Would be
Absolutely.
ideal for us, man. So I love that you touched on that. What's next for you in the business, man?
Recreate this. I mean, I think, when I look at some of the things that I'm most proud of and accomplishments I've had, they've all started with a theory. And then I go and do the thing and like, oh, this works. So I'd like to be able to create more people with that do what I do. It's kind of taken the path that I've taken. Maybe not necessarily work with a professional team, but just as a therapist and the philosophy of how they go about to help people get better. Because I think it's unique, but also more importantly, it works. So
Yeah,
I like to create more of people to do what I do.
I like it, man. Where can we find you? Where can we find stuff for Sports Massage Pros?
So we are located in Sterling, Virginia, right across the
Mm-hmm.
street from the Costco. You can't miss us. We've been here for this is a wow. This is our third year at this location.
There
Didn't
you go,
realize that.
man. Gosh, it's time just flying. And then how about on the social side, Instagram, YouTube, where you guys at?
All sports massage pros.
Okay.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all sports massage pros, website sportsmassagepros.com.
Awesome. And we'll have that linked for everybody in the show notes here, Apple Podcast, Spotify down below. If you guys are watching, it'll be in the YouTube notes. In addition to that, Robert, any closing thoughts here as we wrap up and we get ready to get after it here this Thursday morning?
Depending on when this comes out, if it's before Thanksgiving, what people need to know is we have a Black Friday sale going on right now. You buy two, get one free while supplies last. So we've been offering it only thus far to our current patients that we see. So don't have many spots left. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is just, man, it's great to be able to do this with you.
Yeah.
Very great to do this with you.
Well, thanks for your time, Robert. And this is going to come out before Thanksgiving. This is actually the next one that we're gonna publish. So this will be coming out on Monday, the 20th, actually. So we'll have a couple of days prior to that, which would be great. Thanks for sharing that. And dude, thanks for giving me your time here just to be able to affect the lives that are going to be able to listen to this show and possibly come see it. It enhanced my life so much, as I shared earlier. And I know you're going to help just so many more people as you're doing here. So, dude, thanks for your time. And for the listeners out there, thanks for dropping in at Hometown Gym. Robert, you're the man. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, Brandon. Have a great day. Tell the wife I said hello, and I can't wait to see when you have your second child, man. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.